In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is East Calling, Jelena and Ryan with you, and our favorite podcaster, Larry Johnson. Very nice to see you. And you know, there are, of course, a lot of interesting things that happened during the last week, but I have one very important question. Any one of you seen the new Odyssey movie?
No, I have not.
Are you planning to?
I usually wait till it comes out that I don't have to leave my home to go to a theater. I'm not big on the theater experience. I like being able to sit in my recliner and smoke a cigar, drink scotch if necessary.
Oh, that sounds already really good.
Go to the bathroom when I want. I can put the movie on pause. Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. A friend of mine saw it and he said it's nothing like the book. No, that's not a joke. He said it was pretty bad and very woke. So I don't know. I have to wait and see when we're ready. So how about you, Jelena? Did you see it?
No, of course not. I will wait until you see it, and then I will ask you.
Yeah, if it's worth your time.
Yeah.
You gotta wonder why they're. This is basically the story of Troy. I mean, they made that movie already.
Mm-hmm. Right. Was that Brad Pitt? I think that was Brad Pitt.
That's Brad Pitt. Yeah. But mythology is mythology. How to collapse a great empire. Which is probably an appropriate movie theme for today.
Yeah, actually, good. That's a very good point. I was seeing there are posts, in fact, on X about the tragedy of the great empire politics or great power politics, maybe. And I know that Professor Mearsheimer talks about that. What would you say right now? Are we reliving the tragedy? In a certain sense, not that tragedy, but other tragedies, Greek tragedy right now across the globe?
Yeah, well, one of the common characteristics of, let's call them great empires that collapse, that fold in on themselves, is when they get so entwined with foreign military adventures that they spin themselves into a hole. They neglect to take care of their domestic constituency, and it ultimately fragments society and destroys it. We're exactly on that trajectory in the United States right now.
And Ryan, I actually have to add here, because what I heard from Russian-speaking circles, they said that Homer actually, he was the first military propagandist ever. So what we're facing now, actually, he started that document, if we go by documents and so on. And I see the same mythology now in the press. Because when I open mainstream media of the West, well, we also see the myths, which don't have many common with reality, so to speak. So yeah, I think we are living in a modern day mythology, as we can call it, and we are the mythbusters of a sort.
Actually, Larry, yesterday, speaking of not myths and reality, yesterday, July 20th, was a very important historic anniversary. You nodding your head, so I think you might actually know about this.
Right.
I didn't remember, but it was when Tom Cruise.
How could you remember? You weren't even born yet. Okay.
That's right.
I was. Let's see. I was 14 years old playing baseball that day. I remember we were on a field called Mill Creek Park. So yeah, I remember it.
All right. So wait a second. Wait, I'm wondering now if there are two events that happened in history yesterday. The one I was thinking of was in 1944.
Oh yes, the attempt to kill Hitler.
Yes.
I was thinking of the moon landing.
Was that yesterday also?
Yeah. And more importantly, it was my son's birthday yesterday, so we took him out for dinner last night.
Oh, okay. Well, the moon landing one is, that's a life-changing thing. Actually, what an interesting contraposition. The moon landing, something that is optimistic and good and happy and future-oriented, and July 20th, 1944. What I was talking about was centered around General Friedrich Olbricht, General Henning von Tresco, and Tom Cruise. I mean, Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg and the assassination of Hitler with Operation Valkyrie, which failed. And I was thinking about that. And there's a couple little facts on this. Hitler survived, as we know. The coup failed within 5 hours. 7,000 people were arrested. Almost 5,000 were executed, including 200 conspirators. And the Nazi cult was sort of strengthened. But I was thinking about what's going on in Ukraine today, where you have Ukraine. It seems increasingly like it's disintegrating, Larry. Syrskyi, was the head of the military, Fedorov, who was just canned as the minister of defense, but he was the big AI and drone warfare guy. So you've got all of this just going on. Russia is plowing across the battlefield in a very concerted way. I'm not suggesting that somebody tried to replay Operation Valkyrie. In fact, I think it would be devastating to Ukraine if that were to happen. Really, Zelensky should fly to Moscow and secure a surrender in the best terms possible. What are your thoughts about everything going on right now in Ukraine from that standpoint?
Well, nothing's going right for the Ukrainians, that's for sure. I'm continually just struck by the inherent contradiction. I mean, Ukraine is a walking contradiction. You have the West, and especially the Brits, and I'll put the Brits, I'll exclude the Germans for a second, backing a regime who is ideologically aligned with the Nazis. Now, when you go back to look at World War II, Britain was unalterably opposed to the Nazis, and ostensibly rejected everything that was associated with Nazism, as did the United States, and at least initially. But by the end of that war, we found the Brits and the Americans giving shelter, aid, and comfort to the very Nazis, members of the SS, to protect them because of our greater fear of Bolshevism or the communist threat from the Soviet Union, even though we had fought alongside the Soviets. So now you get this regime in Ukraine, which is so tightly aligned ideologically with the Nazis of the 1940s, and you also see Israel, who, insists never again the Holocaust, because that was carried out by the Nazis, ostensibly. And yet, who does Israel now embrace? The Nazis. So, the reality is,
look at that. By the way, what you're saying, embracing Israeli vets leading Ukrainian units.
Yeah. I mean, it's just nonsensical. So,
Zelensky, you were saying.
Yeah, Zelensky himself does not have. He's not a popular figure who is, celebrated as a great leader. He's in the position because of some oligarchs that, he was put in position by their deep state, has been maintained in that position by their deep state. Up until recently, he was like an ATM card for the West. Insert Zelensky into Washington or London or Paris or Berlin, and you come away with some cash. Now that the sort of the bloom is off that rose, and the progress of the war has shifted so dramatically, so decisively against Ukraine now. There really is no way out. So I guess we're looking at what I call the death throes of this administration. And so this is, the drama surrounding Fedorov, this 35-year-old defense minister. I mean, my God, if you think there could be a worse choice than Pete Hegseth, Fedorov might qualify in that regard. At least Hegseth had served in the military. Fedorov, to my knowledge, had no military experience. So it is, it's just, it's the drama associated with the decline of a regime. That's the simplest way to put it.
And actually, speaking
No,
about Fedorov and Syrsky. Syrsky, first of all, he has military academy, and I think it was a couple of years ago when he acknowledged that he actually studied from Gerasimov how to carry out operation. And of course, Syrsky was called General 200, for those who maybe don't remember the speakers. 200 in Soviet military slang means killed in action. And Syrsky was known for quite a lot of losses in the army. But Fedorov, he is, I don't know, he really looks like a startup boy who would better do in some, in some Google corporation or whatever, having a Starbucks cup and sushi set, but not as a military, anyhow related to military. But what is wondering me that actually Western press, especially the British one, they actively support Fedorov, and they are heavily criticizing Zelensky that he wants to remove him from position, and they call it a mistake. So do they want somebody to replace Zelensky, and if so, then why?
Yeah, I don't know who would replace him. Maybe excuse me. Maybe Zaluzhny, General Zaluzhny, who was carted off to London as Ukraine's ambassador, just to get him politically out of the potential to meddle in the political affairs, the political drama going on in Kyiv. So there is, again, when it comes to selecting a political leader, you got to first ask, is there anybody that has a following, that has a base of support? Right now, Zaluzhny appears he might be that person. It's fascinating that Syrsky has hung on as long as he has, given his abysmal record. Yeah, they've been able to, have delay the Russian advance for 4 years or 3 years. But what's taking place right now, where you've got the Russians basically surrounding Sumy, surrounding Kharkiv, closing in on surrounding Slavyansk and Kramatorsk and Donetsk, which are sort of the last two remaining strongholds, and and the ongoing isolation of Odessa. That's the one I see is really underreported right now. But we've been dealing now for the last 2 months with this massive propaganda effort about Russia's losing, Putin's on his last legs, etc. And it's not true, but the events on the ground are now making it more and more difficult for the Western propaganda machine to keep pumping out its garbage.
Well, now on what you are both talking about, I've seen some of these things now where in Poland, there are Poles attacking. I think there was a case attacking a young girl on a train, or a young girl saw this attack from a Pole on a Ukrainian. You had, I guess, weeks ago, the new president of Poland took back this White Eagle Award from Zelensky because, hey, you guys supported the Nazis and did atrocities against Poles. So one, is Poland distancing itself from Ukraine? And now that you brought up Odessa, my other question is General Surovikin coming back to the fore?
Yeah, I don't know where that's come from because it's not like Russia's struggling and needs some sort of inspirational figure to lead it. They're doing just fine, So bringing back Surovikin, he's a pretty good self-marketer. He got, as I recall, he was effectively removed in part because of his association with Prigozhin. You remember the leader of the ill-fated coup attempt against Putin. So I don't see, this groundswell demanding, bring back Surovikin. It is.
You've seen it also.
Yeah. I was sort of puzzled when I saw that pop up. I go, really? What's happened that makes this such a, an item that has to be addressed right now?
Actually, I wanted to make a remark here because I was talking, I am still talking to some military commentators from Russia, and what they said that the main thing that we have to understand that Russian army, it works as a system, and it is a system, and it also wins as a system. So they don't have this bright, sparkling figures. It's like when we compare Roman Empire and Hannibal, who was from Carthage, and of course Hannibal was a bright leader, but he lost to that system of Romans. And the Russian army is actually, they call Moscow the third Rome. So Russian army is some kind of sort of maybe not copy paste, of course, but some kind of successor of what Romans did, and their army is the same. And what I was explained that there is such thing as rotation. So Surovikin, he played his part, he made what he was required to do, then he was moved to another position. And maybe it's somehow unpopular decisions, but sometimes even very effective leaders, they are being put into other direction in order not to create these very close groups within the military who start putting interests of the small groups above the interests of the whole army. So this is also the case why this rotation is carried out, because people have to feel brotherhood, so to speak, not only to closest comrades, but also to other units and other, how to say, joint forces. So this is why the rotation is carried out.
Well, yeah, I think it's an excellent point that you make, Lena, about the lack of let's call it the cult of personality. While there were legendary generals from World War II, with Zhukov probably being the most famous. There are others like Vatutin. The work of the general staff it's the Russian army, I guess a little bit like its Soviet predecessor, is not focused upon personality per se, but the soldiers do recognize good leadership and bad leadership. Well, I mean, that's not unique to the Russian army, the Soviet army, or American army. I mean, soldiers who, particularly in combat roles, they know when they've got a general leading that's worth following. One of the hallmarks of Russian generals, as opposed to U.S. generals, is they do tend to lead from the front. They're not known for being the REMFs, which is an acronym. It stands for Rear Echelon Motherfuckers. Guys who stay in the back and they're never up at the front line. In fact, you can make a case that's why there were a number of Russian generals killed during the Great Patriotic War, because they refused to hide back behind the lines, and they were up front with the troops. But being up front with the troops is inspirational as well. Pays real dividends. So, I think the more important thing to focus on right now is the shift in the Russian military strategy over the past, 3 weeks. I don't necessarily think, can you tie it to the attack on the girls' dormitory in Donetsk, or some of the other attacks on Russian oil infrastructure? But now, particularly over the last 14 days, the Russian army has taken the gloves off. They are pounding Kyiv relentlessly, day after day. Every day you read the headline, "This is the biggest missile strike ever." And I go, wait, that's what you said yesterday. And that's what you said the day before. So what we're seeing is, with each passing day, the missile strikes are growing larger and larger and larger, but they're basically dismantling the industrial infrastructure of Kyiv that can be used in military endeavors. That's number one. Number two, I think the biggest move is now I'll call it the siege of Odessa. So when you go back to 2022, when Russia, I think, initially was going to try to enforce a blockade on Odessa, they got, frantic pleas from the UN, and, please allow the grain, let the, so it was called the grain deal. And Russia essentially, and I'll say foolishly, agreed to this deal that allowed Ukraine to trade grain, and in the process, all those ships that were coming back were usually loaded with weapons and other material that to be used against Russia. Well, I think after the attack, the drone attacks in the Azov, which damaged 19 ships, I think the Russian fighter said, "Okay, enough," and so they are. Any ship headed to Odessa, it's getting blown up. Any ship in the docks in Odessa trying to leave, it's getting blown up. Port infrastructure, it's being hit and destroyed. Bridges connecting Odessa, bridges and railway trestles connecting Odessa back to the mainland of Ukraine, they're getting destroyed. So Odessa is now being physically isolated, and it's going to be captured. And Russia will retake control of Odessa and return it to its, let's call it its rightful state.
Actually, it's a very interesting point, because I also, when I was looking through the reports, and Russians really started to hit the infrastructure and started hitting supply routes that they didn't do before in that scale. Yeah. And it was also explained by, so to speak, Russian side, because they said we're not hitting bridges, we're not hitting even Odessa port, it was said last year, because of course everyone knows that the armor supply goes via these routes. Everyone knows that. It's not a secret to Russian army, but they know that if they strike that, then Ukraine and Europe, they will find other ways. So why to disrupt what is working and give them ideas to create something new when we can just observe and destroy what is being accumulated in large storage places? But now, if they're striking supply routes already, this means that maybe they really see that the end of the conflict is near. something made them act that harshly?
Well, no, I think it's just, look, war is always about logistics. It is about anyone that's, one of the things I was, fortunate to experience when I went through my CIA training is in the career trainee program, they decided to put us through a 12-week paramilitary course. Now, part of the reason for that, the reasoning at the time was, so this was 1985. So the agency now was getting an influx of personnel, and particularly into the Directorate of Operations, who didn't have prior military experience. In the 70s, 10 years previously, you were getting Vietnam vets, people, veterans who had been in the military. And so particularly if you were in the Marine Corps, the Army, and you were out in the field, you understood what it was to have to carry, say, 100-pound backpack, and to have to carry a radio with spare batteries. The radios are called Prick 77s, and it was like carrying a 40-pound weight in your bag. So and understand what the difficulty in moving through jungles or moving over mountains, because what they began discovering is they were bringing in people who had no prior military experience. They would go overseas. They'd be interacting with local sources, and these sources were being asked to carry out, let's call it, covert activities, but they were being asked to do what were physically impossible things to do, simply because the people that were tasking them had never done it before. So that's where they put us through a 3-day field exercise where you're running through the forests, and you're carrying backpacks, and you're having to worry about how are you going to eat, how are you going to drink, where's your water coming from, what do you do when you run out of ammunition, how do you get resupplied, how do you avoid offensive forces that are chasing you, a number of things. And so that's where we come back to understanding that logistics, particularly in modern warfare, is critical. Soldiers being asked to put their lives on the line, but knowing that if they get shot, they're going to be left out in the field, that nobody's going to come for them. Whereas one of sort of the hallmarks of modern warfare, at least on the U.S. side, is that if you get shot, blown up, you're wounded severely in any way, you may only be 15 minutes from a field hospital that will patch you up or at least save your life. And so that also affects the morale of soldiers, and their willingness to fight. They know that, in effect, the system has their back, as opposed to the system just using them like a disposable piece of trash. So that's what the Russian army has been effective at, and that's where the Ukrainian army has failed logistically. In order to, soldiers get this is why I think there is a disproportionate number of wounded soldiers on the Ukrainian side that die simply because they can't get medical treatment.
Yes, and actually utilizing this, potential of the golden hour, as it is called by the medical staff, is that if they are able to, get this medical assistance in the first hour after the wound. If not, then a lot of time is lost. And actually, Ryan, if you don't mind, I would like to close this Ukraine topic with that video, that I have posted on the channel. I don't know if you have seen that or not, but this is about Sobchak, who was first boss of Putin when Putin returned from his service in KGB in Germany. He worked in administration of Saint Petersburg, and his boss was Anatoly Sobchak. Sobchak himself, he was a controversial person, of course, but he was a law like professional, and he made really very interesting points about Ukraine as such. And he said it was back in 1992 when he said that first of all, Ukraine is a threat to all the world with its military ambitions, because first of all, what Ukraine wanted to do, they wanted to build up their army using the personnel of Soviet army who stayed on their territory. They wanted to seize Black Sea Fleet, and they had nuclear ambitions. And back in 1992 already, they were connecting their independence solely with a powerful military, not with human rights, not with constitution, not with freedom of speech, but solely with the army. This was the first point. And the second point, what he also brought up, this is the symbiosis of hardcore communists and Ukrainian nomenclatura, as we call it. It's bureaucracy in its worst, and nationalism. So we were speaking about combining uncombinable things. So Ukraine was already then a walking contradiction. And our subscriber, he made very interesting commentary. We posted it a little while here, that Putin already in 2001, he knew that the West was up to, and so he would never allow himself to be fooled. And that I fully agree with. So, and
you have a video? Did you say you have a video?
Yes, I have a video, but it's 10 minutes long.
Okay.
Video, so I will not play it now, of course.
In light of that and what Larry said about military training, I just want to put up a cartoon from Nemo about Lindsey Graham, who took the elevator. I don't think he had, he had Air Force training, but that was it. But any case, everything that he wanted to the last Ukrainian seems to be, in that sense, happening. So this is his recent cartoon from Nemo. I'm sure you know Nemo.
Oh, yeah. No, in regular contact. I just hadn't posted it yet. I've been slammed. He sends me the cartoons. I put them up on Telegram.
So now, speaking of some of these things, it does seem that Trump and Israel are acting like they're going to double down in the war with Iran. Actually, though, I saw some videos. People were suggesting that Israel is possibly using white phosphorus in Lebanon. You mentioned last week all that Iran has to do is keep it up on hitting these 10 targets, much easier than, say, what the U.S. and Israel have. One thing that I saw were some videos in Jordan, like this one, of bases getting pretty hard hit. And apparently, and maybe you can say something more about this, Larry, that the casualties are actually mounting for the U.S., which is something that Americans say, hey, now we're done with this, when they start hearing about that. Anything that you can say about that at all?
Yeah,
to clarify?
we had a remarkable admission from the Pentagon this week that, in fact, they have been covering up the casualties. They have been underreporting them. They admitted that there have been, just in the last 2 weeks, more than 100 casualties. But then they said, "Oh, but these are just flesh wounds. These are minor." When I heard that, all I could see is Monty Python sprang to mind. Anybody that's ever watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and the battle with the Black Knight, where in this battle one of the King Arthur's knights confronts this vicious Black Knight, and in the ensuing battle with swords, the knight of King Arthur cuts off both arms and both legs of the Black Knight. So the Black Knight's laying there basically like a baseball bag, just a fixed position on the ground, going, "Come here, you coward! It's just a flesh wound." Okay. That's these are, quote, flesh wounds. These are peeling off the flesh. No, it is the damage is significant. And I put up an article last night at Sonar 21 called basification. In other words, driving the United States out of its bases in the Persian Gulf and now in Jordan. And in the start of the war, Iran had some good assistance from Russia and China in selecting targets, and they very specifically targeted radar satellite communication systems that were spread throughout the Gulf. They had them. It's the one before that.
Oh,
yeah.
Let's see here.
One from yesterday. It's called debasification.
I'll look for that one.
Yeah, just if you go to the top, click on Sonar 21 right there.
Yep.
There it is.
Oh, there it is.
But I talk about the extensive damage, destruction of radars and satellite systems initially. And what that did is it blinded the United States. Previously, the United States could see everything taken off and missiles being launched, and they could pinpoint where something was, which would help them target it with a response. Then once Iran removed that, all of a sudden, the United States is in the dark. A little can't see what's coming at it, and then Iran sort of entered the next phase of attacking the infrastructure at those bases. So where the U.S. used to have a robust presence, 10,000 troops in Bahrain at the Fifth Fleet headquarters, 20,000 troops in Al Udeid, both Air Force and Army and Marine components. Those are now vacated. They're not a number of personnel there to provide a good target. Bahrain and Kuwait are just getting the hell pounded out of them. You still do have some U.S. tankers present at like Prince Saud Air Base in Saudi Arabia, but Iran essentially is driving one of their demands back around April 7th to have what they wanted included in the MOU was the withdrawal of U.S. forces from the Persian Gulf. Well, Iran's making that happen now. They don't have to have U.S. agreement. They're forcing it upon the United States. And the United States keeps retreating, not advertising this, but they're retreating. And so it had concentrated its forces then at these two air bases in Jordan, Mawafaq al-Salti and Prince Hassan. And they got shellacked 4 days ago, killed. They announced it killed two. One was missing. Yeah, that's a useful euphemism for saying that poor person was vaporized. They got hit, and whatever explosion hit them, it just left body parts. Because they did admit yesterday that the U.S. military authorities were recovering body parts, trying to figure out who went with what. Which you're telling yourself, wait a second. If you've only got one person missing, and you're finding body parts, that should be the clue of what you're dealing with. But that suggests if they're trying to figure out which body parts go with whom, it tells you there was more than just one vaporized person. Okay, that just doesn't make sense. They used to base. They have this, $250 million drone called the MQ-4C Triton. And it's apparently got this, can stay aloft for hours upon hours. But $250 million is quite a price. One of them was already shot down by the Iranians. And so that, I guess, there are only total two left. It takes a while to build these things, and so it's not like they've got a fleet. And they initially deployed one forward to Jordan early May. So this was even after the ceasefire had taken place, but it was prior to the MOU getting signed. The U.S. had put the Triton in Jordan to fly around and conduct surveillance over Iran. A week ago on the 14th, the United States pulled it back to Italy. Why? Because it was too damn dangerous to keep it in Jordan. They feared that it would get destroyed on the ground. And the Iranians they've hit all these targets in Jordan and in the other bases that are support structures primarily for drones. They're really doing some significant damage to the U.S. drone program. I think they've destroyed in the past 3 weeks something like 15 MQ-9 Reapers, and each of those go for about $60 million a pop. So you're talking well over $500 million worth of drones that Iran is taken out of action. So this is, the war shifted in a way that the United States didn't anticipate. It's turning out to be far more costly to it. And then, sort of the cherry on top of this cake, at least as far as Iran is concerned, is that if you look at the precision missiles, and there we're talking like the air defense missiles, the PAC-3s, the THAADs, the anti-air defense missiles, the ones that are fired at the Iranian air defense systems that conduct what they call SEAD, suppression of enemy air defense. Those are like the HARM missile that's fired from a Predator or can be fired from an combat aircraft, or the offensive missiles, the Tomahawks, the JASSMs, the ATACMS, which they're out of the show now anyway because they just don't have the range, but their replacement, the PRSM, and in every single one of those categories of precision missiles, the inventories are either exhausted. They're exhausted with respect to the PAC-3s, the THAADs, and the PRSMs. There really aren't any more to shoot. They can talk about it, but they don't. Whatever's left is only, maybe less than 30 or fewer. But the other ones they're still at critical low levels, because when they give the totals, like say there's 2,000 Tomahawks left. Well, that's for the whole damn military, not just Central Command. That's also for Pacific Command and also for European Command. And so when people are told that in the first 4 weeks of Epic Fury, the United States fired almost 1,000 Tomahawks. Well, they started off with 3,000, so they used up almost a third in just 4 weeks. And what did they accomplish? They didn't crash the Iranian army. So this is so what the United States is now facing is a severe strategic shortage of these precision missiles, and they do not have the supply chain in place to replace them. They don't have the industrial capability to replace them in any timely fashion. They're saying to restore to like pre-war levels, it may take upwards of 4 years, 4 to 5 years. This is the United States has basically created a war of attrition and is inflicting it on itself. And I've argued that I think one of the reasons, China is experiencing mixed emotions. The definition of mixed emotions is watching your mother-in-law drive off the cliff in your brand new Cadillac. Okay, it's a mixture of happiness and regret. So the Chinese, they're upset with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. It is causing them some economic loss. But on the other hand, every damn missile that the United States launches at Iran is one last missile that's going to be launched at Chinese forces. And Chinese is watching the United States basically deplete itself of these major weapon systems that they would use in any offensive against China. And so from that standpoint, China's like, you know what? It's not such a bad thing.
So that's interesting that you bring that up. Jelena and I were talking about China before the show, and man, there's like half a dozen things that I would like to bring up. But one is that Trump is now scapegoating China. China and the Democratic Party. They stole the election together, and somebody else, maybe it was Ben Norton, he was saying, well, is McCarthyism back? I'm wondering, is this just changing the subject from everything that you've just discussed between Ukraine and Russia, and not to mention the economies? Speaking of which, by the way, apparently this has become a meme war. The latest Chinese agent to be controlling American politics, BB Ping. Maybe it's either him or maybe it's Epstein Wang. They're controlling the elections. What is going on? Is this just a sideshow, Larry? Is this a distraction? Conversely, is China, involved in stuff in both Iran and in Europe, which is what Jelena and I were talking about? You had on your website Baidu, but in Ukraine also you had some drone sales that have come up. What do you make of what China is doing, what Trump is saying, and all of these things?
Okay, so I'll correct your pronunciation because I was making the same mistake. Think of Play-Doh, Beidou. Beidou. So that's the easiest way to remember it.
Thank you.
So let's first go back to this specious claim that China was interfering in the 2020 election.
Right.
Now, I commented on this the other day, and I had some people just get outraged. How dare you say this? Because what I said was, yes, there was election. The election in 2020 was stolen from Donald Trump, but it was done the old-fashioned way with ballot stuffing. So anybody that says, oh, well, Johnson, you are just completely full of shit, go back. You can go to my website, Sonar 21. And type in new complaint filed alleging that U.S. Postal Service, USPS in paren, committed electoral fraud in the 2020 presidential election. And in this, I detailed a complaint that was filed with the U.S. District Court in Maryland by my business partner, John Moynihan. We're currently, let's call it, we're sort of like semi-retired, but John is still, he's still a good friend. And what John presented to the U.S. District Court was concrete evidence that a truck driver named Jesse Morgan had picked up a container filled with 20 Gaylord boxes. A Gaylord box is like a giant wardrobe box, like if you're moving. So it would hold, each Gaylord would hold up to 50 to 100,000 ballots. And on this particular day, Morgan was transporting at least 1 million ballots. They were already filled in with signatures on the envelopes. And how does John know that? Because he went and got depositions, not just from Morgan, but from the post office employees who handled those ballots. Now, the ballots were only supposed to be handled as certified first-class mail, but instead, those ballots were sent to a warehouse in Long Island that was specifically for handling packages. So, like I said, this is a complaint complete with evidence, complete with depositions, etc. And so people say, well, you're just making this up. No, bullshit. Well,
that makes more sense to me. Actually, what you're saying makes way more sense to me as a traditional thing.
Yeah.
My view is, what the heck could the Democratic Party offer to China? China's the biggest. They're the future in terms of mega industry. I just was rereading, they're 320 times the United States in shipbuilding, for example.
Yeah. No, well, look, this effort, again, this was a smear on China. If you go back to Trump's presentation, he didn't present one piece of evidence that China actually manipulated votes. He claimed, China stole 220 million voting records. Really?
They're public,
because
mostly.
If you just go online and do the search, how many registered voters were there in 2020? I've seen two different numbers, 189 million, 199 million. Well, whichever one you take, there's 20 to 30 million registered voters that the Chinese got that the United States didn't have. So just again, calls into question the factual nonsense of this.
The people that that had to vote more than once in different states, those are the people that.
Yeah, but the evidence is quite clear about the meddling. It was done the old-fashioned way, and this truck driver, he had made multiple runs of this.
But Larry, why bring this up now? That's my question. Why bring it up now?
Exactly. This was why bring it up now? And all of this was designed to try to create a meme against China.
I just remember the meme, which was very popular during election time. I don't know if you remember this one or not. Yeah, but it's literally about meddling into election and the vote of the long-distance people who took part.
Well, no, when you go back, look, right immediately when the election happened and Trump was alleged to have lost, and this gets back into the corruption of the intelligence community of Trump's own people. They're trying to blame deep staters. Good God, this wasn't deep staters. This was the United States itself indulging in this nonsense. And it was they deliberately tried to create narratives about, it was the Chinese. Oh, no, it was the Venezuelans with their Smartmatic voting machines. Oh, no, wait, it was this Italian defense company. It was involved with manipulating the machines. Oh, there was a CIA. There's a battle in Frankfurt, Germany, between the CIA and military special forces the CIA was trying to cover up the election fraud. I mean, it went on and on. Oh, the Russians did it. And meanwhile, what actually happened was this election was stolen from the inside. It was done with the complicity even of Republicans, including the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, and his Secretary of State. I mean, this is just, this was egregious stuff. And but it was, and Donald Trump was a fool. He could have organized a response to go after this. Instead, he allowed, Sidney Powell was off doing her crazy stuff, and Rudy Giuliani, when he wasn't, drunk as a skunk, he was pushing some nonsense. I mean, it was appalling. Anyway, yeah.
I had a very brief question. It just popped up when we started the stream, but I paid a lot of attention to it because I'm in Europe, of course. But today Aliyev, he was meeting Merz, and it was confirmed by Aliyev that actually a group of former German politicians and officials were meeting a group of Russian, as far as I understood, business representatives in Baku. So there were actually attempts to restore the relationship between Russia and Germany. And on the other hand, it was clearly sabotaged, I think, by Times, because it was the Times that reported about that. And today Aliyev confirmed it when meeting with BlackRock Merz. So do you think that, I don't know, maybe there is still hope for Germany to restore relationship with Russia, or this will lead to something really bad?
Yeah,
for
well,
the-
if yeah,
for
no,
the
if public opinions followed, they'll restore relationships with Russia. But it is these captives of the deep state that are politically in charge in these countries right now, that are intent upon provoking a war. I don't know how that's going to end, but there is still at least hope.
All right, Larry, thank you very much. It was a short 1 hour, so it was power packed, and we will speak to you next week. You have a good day. Jelena, good to talk to you. Thanks to our guests and everybody that has been on the show. Have a good day.
Yes, sir. And send me the link. So I can make sure to get it posted up. You guys, it gets you more attention. Help
Will
the
do.
whiners grow.
Yeah, and Whiners and East Calling.
Yeah, East
Yeah.
Calling,
East-
but East
East
Calling's
West.
growing, but Whiners needs a boost.
You're right. You're right. Larry, thank you very much.
All right,
Take
guys.
care.
Always a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.